Yo, what is up, MewCrew, and welcome to the first ever episode of. Wait, what? The series where I'm going to be going over all of the different characters in Marvel's Contest of Champions and giving you a overview of their base abilities, synergies, where they're good, and where they're not good. My goal with this series is to make you either a expert in a champion that you already play every day, or maybe introduce you to some not so popular, overpowered characters that are still very strong and can get the job done, and leave you saying, wait, what? They can do that? Today's episode is going to be one of the more popular community favorites, and one of my favorites, Human Torch. So if you want to read the abilities right out, I'll see if there's a way that I can put them maybe in the sidebar or something like that. If not, you can just go to Aunt May or just the in-game champion info and just read everything off there and follow along. But I think it'll be more viewer friendly if I give you just a base overview with some accompanying actual gameplay and where those situations actually come in handy. So for starters, right out of the gate, he's very good. If you ever pull him as a 4, 5, 6 star, you should be happy because he doesn't need the dupe, he doesn't need synergies, he doesn't need anything like that. Right out of the gate, he's a very, very powerful champion. And he has 3 specific mechanics that are very unique to him and very, very powerful. So he has a temperature meter that you have to manage, which is the core of his gameplay. He has smolders that you get from various ways that increase his damage of his incinerates. And then he has his Noble form, which adds additional utility to his incinerates and also increases the damage and has its own powerful effects. So at a base level, he's immune to Incinerate, Cold Snap, and Frostbite. Additionally, whenever he would get incinerated or take incinerate damage, he instead places a smolder on himself, which increases his incinerate damage by 12% per smolder charge. His attacks deal energy damage instead of physical damage, which is important in matchups like Korg, because you don't take the damage back from his signature ability. Now, as I was saying, his temperature is his main mechanic that you need to manage in order to play him at an optimal high level. So it scales from 0 to 20, 20 being the max, and 10 being kind of the minimum that you want to stay at. And the ways that you can manage this are either by weaving in heavy attacks into your combos, which increases temperature the longer that you hold his heavy attack, or you can take block damage or get hit if you slip up with energy damage. So characters like Iron Man Infinity Ward, they have specific basic attacks that count as energy damage, so that will apply 1 smolder to him and increase his temperature by 5. Or you can get hit by a Mystic, because all of Mystic's attacks and everything that they do count as energy damage towards Human Torch's abilities. So if you're baiting out heavies and they hit into your block 4 times, if it's a Mystic champion, you'll get 4 smolders and your temperature will go up by 16 because you're going to be, or actually 20, because it would go up by 5 temperature per hit that you're taking. The reason this is so important is because the length of his incinerates are directly correlated to his temperature. So you could be at 600 smolder, which is a massive damage increase, but you're not going to be getting the full benefit of Human Torch because his temperatures increase it by 4 seconds if you're at 20 temperature. Another very important ability that he has here is above 10 temperature, his attacks can't miss. So you can completely bypass any sort of node that gives you a chance to falter or miss, or specific matchups like Invisible Woman, Darkhawk, or Mysterio, where they have abilities that make them go invisible and you can't miss. Now his incinerates, you apply them with the first medium, the first light, and the last medium, his heavy hits, and his special attacks. His incinerates remove perfect block chance and block proficiency, just like normal incinerates. However, his incinerates do have an additional layer of ability or utility, where they further reduce the regeneration rate by 20%. So this is really important in matchups like Buffet, Masochism, Constant Regen, any characters that have burst regen or constant regen throughout the fight, like Sabretooth, Wolverine, because especially with the Despair Mastery, you can very quickly start to reverse that healing. The only thing you have to be careful is if you're using Suicides, the duration of his incinerates are reduced by 4 seconds anytime he's bleeding. So you just want to be careful of that and try and wait that out if you are using Suicides. The other reason that his temperature is important is because when you get it at 220, it locks in for 6.5 seconds at 20, so it can't decrease or increase, and you have a chance to activate your Nova Form if you can apply 7 incinerates on them. So if you're at 20 temperature and get 7 incinerates, you switch to a Nova Form, which activates your Nova Flames instead of your incinerates, which completely remove perfect block and block proficiency to 0 instead of just a 50% reduction. They apply a power sting every time you apply one, and they're passive, which is the most powerful part of utility of Human Torch, because the fact that it's a passive Nova Flame, not even a passive Incinerate, allows you to bypass so many important nodes and matchups in the game. For instance, you can get past debuff immune nodes with this because it's not a debuff. You can get past Incinerate immune because it's not an Incinerate. It's a Nova Flame. It's completely own mechanic. And it's just super powerful because, as far as I know, there is nothing in the game that can bypass it, which is actually insane. It also increases the just base damage of the incinerates by 75%. So if you would do 1,000 damage with an incinerate in the Nova Form with the exact same circumstances, you do 1,750 damage. And that's not including all of the smolder charges. So you can very quickly ramp him up in Mystic fights, and his damage just infinitely scales. Now, when it comes to his special attacks, I don't personally use them too much. If I do use them, I use the special 2 if I'm not using Suicides, and the special 3 if I am using Suicides. You want to use the special attacks if you're going up against a matchup that isn't a particularly good matchup. So if you're going against, say, a Luke Cage, somebody who doesn't have any energy attacks, so there's no way to get smolders from being hit, but there's also it's just a very normal fight. This is the way that you can stack up your smolders without any special circumstances like being a mystic or getting hit or getting incinerated from attacks or nodes or anything like that. So if you're going against a Luke Cage, for example, you can just throw a special 1 into his block, and the last hit will apply a smolder and increase their temperature by 5. The special 2 will apply 2 smolders, and the special 3 will activate your Nova Form for 8 seconds, as well as apply 2 smolders. So you can use the special 3 safely whenever to just get some burst damage, apply a couple incinerates, and increase your smolder count. So this is the easiest way that you can increase your damage and accumulate smolders in non-ideal matchups. Now for his synergies, he doesn't have any that are specific that you need to play with, which is again one of my favorite parts of him. He does have some that are beneficial to him, that are nice to have, but it's not like in the case of Thing where you need to have a full synergy team to make him as good as he can possibly be, or Blade, who needs Ghost Rider and Stark in Hand Spider-Man to really max out his potential. The point of power from his base kit to him with synergies is so little that it's not really worth the additional champion slots to bring anybody else in. But if you are, he does have a couple that are beneficial. For instance, his Thing synergy, he lets Human Torch automatically start the fight with 2 smolder charges, and his temperature increases faster while charging a heavy attack, which again is very nice to have, but it's not completely necessary. Another good one is the Iceman synergy, where the opponent takes energy damage, they take an additional burst of energy damage equal to 15% of the original damage. So basically, since all of Human Torch's attacks and abilities count as energy damage, every time you're going to be hitting into them with your normal rotation, they take an additional 15% just burst damage, which is good. Again, it's very helpful if you're there, and if you're bringing in Iceman just because he's a good champion and you want to have him on your team, that's just an extra bit of damage, but it's not mandatory where if you're bringing Human Torch in, you think, oh man, I have to bring Iceman. It's just a very nice to have. He also has the full team synergy from Thing, I believe it is, which makes it so if you have all of the members, all of the Fantastic Four on the team, the last hit of the special 2 will grant a Fury for 6 seconds, which increases their attack by 15%. And if all of them are on there, so if you have Thing, Invisible Woman, Mr. Fantastic, and Human Torch, the effect is doubled. So it'll instead be a 30% increase from his base attack, which is, again, very powerful, but to cost 4 slots for a 30% increase, unless you're going to be using Human Torch only for that path, I personally don't think it's worth it. But again, if you're trying to carry with Human Torch and just completely max out his potential, this is what you would want to go to. Now that all his abilities are explained, his base rotation is very simple, very satisfying, and you can do it in almost every scenario. So you want to start the fight by doing a parry, medium, light, medium. Now, why do you want to do medium, light, medium? Because that's the way that you apply your incinerates and the fastest way to just keep them going. So for instance, if you were to go medium, light, 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 medium, you would still apply those three incinerates. However, it would be harder to stack them up to the 7 to trigger the Nova form, because you're weaving in those 2 additional light attacks where incinerates aren't going to be triggering, which is just dead time reducing from the incinerates that you already have applied. So if you just keep rinsing medium, light, medium, you can stack them quicker and hopefully get to that 20 temperature and then trigger your Nova form. You also want to make sure that you're weaving in heavy attacks if you're not going against a Mystic, just so that you can cap out that 20 and again maximize your damage, because that increases the length of your incinerates. If you're going against stun immune or Mystics, typically the way that I play is I just hold block, and then when they heavy, I retaliate with my heavy, because it has a pretty good reach. You'll be able to get up to your max temperature, or just if you're going against the Mystics, stack up as many smolders as you can and then just start attacking into them with the normal rotation. Just the goal is you want to stay at 20 temperature as long as possible. So if you're not at 20 temperature, just parry, hold heavy as long as you can to try and get to that 20 temperature, and then when you're at 20, go into parry, medium, light, medium, parry, medium, light, medium. You can throw your special 3, throw specials. You just, again, the goal is to just stay at 20 temperature while doing as many hits as possible. If you're in your Nova form, you also want to try and bait out specials so that you can get the benefit of the power sting and get more openings to attack into them. If you're really good and you're really comfortable with Human Torch and his animations, you can try and do a lot of backdraft intercepting. So just dash in, intercept them with a medium, light, back off, intercept them with medium, light, back off, medium, light, and then so on and so forth until you have to bait specials. That's the fastest way to accumulate incinerates on them. So if you're fighting a Mystic champion, that's one of the ways that you can get as much damage as possible once you're at 20 temperature already. So you want to parry and bait heavies so that they hit into your block until you're at 20 temperature, because against Mystics you'll just naturally accumulate that temperature. You don't have to worry about charging your heavy, and you're going to be gaining that smolder as you're doing that. And then once you cap out at 20, just start doing the backdraft intercepting so that you can maximize your damage against them. And that's going to be this first episode of Wait, What? If you have any additional questions, inquiries, suggestions, recommendations, anything like that, feel free to drop them in the comments below. I should have my socials located somewhere around here. That's going to be all of my information, so you know where to find me at. If you're new to the channel, new to me, welcome to the MewCrew. I stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/MewCario every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. Eastern. That might be changing, but again, if that does change, I'll announce it somewhere, probably in a video here. But yeah, I will catch you next time. Thank you for stopping by, and peace.